Corporation will be honoring our top team here this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Horse Show will be presenting the Insilco International Team Championship to the United States equestrian team with 121 points.
Last year, the British equestrian team won it. And here are the names of the U.S. team: Catherine Birdsall, Joe Fargus, Rodney Jenkins, and Joan Scharfenberger.
Again, we're very proud to introduce Mr. Duran Glass, former Chief Executive Officer of Insilco Corporation, and Mr. Richard E. McDevitt, President of the American Horse Show Association. You're escorted live to William Joshua Martin Jr., Chairman of the Board of Directors of the National Horse Show. The Insilco International Team Championship awarded to the show jumping team accumulating the most points in competition throughout our National Horse Show. Previous winners of the 4-year-old Insilco
how is the final selection made when they
that we're in now, the Garden, preceded by Washington, then going on to Toronto? They didn't select this opportunity to use some of our young talent in international competition. For example, here, when we knew we could not win the Prize of Nations, the Nations Cup.
Once, if we see Joe Fargus, the Olympic champion, and we have coming up after this, we have another big event. Once the team is chosen, can there be changes in it?
There can be changes at the last minute. A horse gets hurt, rider gets hurt, what have you. It's very seldom changed in the middle. If it's not changed in the middle of a horse show, you can't do that. But once it might have been chosen, but if they haven't competed yet, you've got to stay with the team once you're in competition.
And very special congratulations again. And again, we salute our 1987 Insilco International Team Champions for the United States Equestrian Team. As they take their well-deserved victory gallop, again, we'll have the opportunity to salute our 4 members this year.
The victory gallop, and then we'll proceed with the other activities here at the National Horse Show. One thing that we're looking forward to that we really haven't talked about too much is the dressage exhibition with the leading proponent of dressage in the world. And Andrea, this is a special art that many people work for years and years at, and the greatest is here, Rainer Klimke.
Oh, he's really exciting, and Alaric, his horse, is a great personality, and the two of them are real crowd pleasers.
And of course, dressage is the synchronization of the rider and the horse, just as if they're both doing the same thing without any visible motion. We'll be seeing that later, right here at the National Horse Show, coming up at Madison Square Garden.
For you, a native of Southampton, to perform in your own backyard, as it were.
That's redundant. Yeah, I'm real happy. It's great to be here and do this well.
As a matter of degree, Joe, I know that different things are important to different people. Compare for me, if you would, the importance to you of an Olympic gold medal performance as opposed to being the top rider on the circuit.
Looking back in the history books, the Olympic gold medal is really going to mean something, and people are going to remember my name because of it, my horse's name. As far as satisfaction, I'd say today was real satisfying, and every day is a new day and a different day. And the Olympics was sure a high point, but today was a high point too. So I say you can't compare it. You just do the best you can every day, and if you did the best you can one day and it worked out well, you're real happy, period. So,
are you headed for Seoul, South Korea?
I hate to plan that far in advance, but I don't see why not. I mean, I take it one day at a time. And right now, everything's going okay.
Okay, your outlook as of this point as to this United States Olympic team, as competitive as the one in 1984, would you say?
I would say it has the possibility of being as competitive. It will. The 84 team had a great chemistry to it, absolutely great. We had 4 great horses and riders. We have that potential in the United States still, but again, we have to look for them again. So let's just hope that we can find the right chemistry one more time.
Okay, one of the familiar faces here at Madison Square Garden, Joe Fargis. Joe, thank you very much again. Congratulations.
Sure, thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll take a time.
Gentleman by the name of Joe Fargis, saluting the jury, 39 years old, from Southampton, New York, riding Touch of Class.
And Joe, on this mare, won a pair of gold medals in Los Angeles in 1984 and really started the domination of the Americans in the sport, which they've held ever since that time.
And Touch of Class, one of 6 thoroughbreds in the competition today.
And the smallest horse in the field as well. Smooth approach. Good at B and good at C.
Joe is really a veteran in this kind of competition, and it's showing.
And he knows this mare very, very well. She's a very tricky horse to ride, as most thoroughbreds are, and you have to give him a very sympathetic ride. Very hard, abrupt moves don't work. And get that tight turn to the wall.
Beautiful over the wall.
The 3 strides up the far side. You heard him using his voice there a little bit. Horses respond to voice as well as the physical aids. And he's adding a stride down the last line.
And room to spare over the last jump. A superb round for Joe Fargis and Touch of Class.
Now, Joe added 1 more stride down that last line. Many of the riders have done 4, and he does 5. And he sets this up by, in midair, over the second to last jump, coming back early. So the horse lands short, does 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th stride, and goes clean.
So, we're very satisfied. Joe Fargis and Touch of Class into the final jump off. And we'll be back to Madison Square Garden, home of champions. And he was able to regain his amateur status recently, enabling him to win a silver medal at the Pan American Games in Indianapolis.
I enjoyed that as much as any event in my life. You know, it was different for me. It was like a team effort, which interests me very much. And, you know, it wasn't money that you were riding for, a livelihood, or anything else. You were riding, you know, for yourself, for the team, for the United States, and that's a great honor.
Rodney Jenkins, the winningest rider in the history of Grand Prix jumping, but he'd still kind of like to lay claim to an Olympic gold medal in Seoul, I have a feeling. By the way, Robert, he's riding Heisman today, as you know.
Well, Heisman is a young horse. He's a 9-year-old German-bred horse, and this is one of his few big starts that he's had. So Rodney doesn't know this horse as well as, let's say, Czar, the horse he rode in Indianapolis to that silver medal.
What has made Rodney so consistent over the years? I talked to him, and he talked about balance.
Balance and some sort of innate natural talent that few people can explain. Horses just, as you can see now, through the triple and that fence following, just jump for Rodney. He does everything technically correct, but there's that added something else that has just made it so he's won so many Grand Prix.
The intangibles.
Oh, now for the right at hand, Rodney's making that right turn out of the outgate to the narrow wall. Jumps that well. Now we've got the tight 3 strides coming up. Oxford going in. Ooh, he makes a little break in there.
Just clip that 9th.
It looked
jump
like the horse did not respond to Rodney there, his hands. We say that when a horse does that, they get a little dead in the mouth, that the bit really doesn't have a reaction, and that's what we use as the brakes.
And so Rodney Jenkins finishing the course with 1 rail down, 4 faults. It's going to be unusual not to see him in the final jump-off this year. Catherine Birdsall finishes this competition with an excellent ride, just not good enough to beat Katie Monahan-Prudhomme. Catherine's in second now. And Joe Fargis gets ready to take his turn at the jump-off. Once again, Joe is on Touch of Class.
Now, going first is usually a disadvantage, but Katie has really turned the tables on the field, and what she's done is forced these other riders to change their strategy. In order to beat her, I repeat, they have to go very fast in the beginning of the course.
No problem over the double for Joe.
But Joe has done the same number of strides down the first line in that turn, so there his split time is the same. He's tied with Katie at the moment, but goes wider in the turn, skids out, has the rail down. Now he's carrying 4 faults. He's automatically behind those 2 because faults take precedence over time.
And a fine effort for the Olympic veteran, Joe Fargis, but with 4 faults, as you pointed out, he'll have to wait till next year.
Now, the problem happened in turn 9. When Touch of Class was making the turn, look at her right hind leg. It's leading the left, while the front end is doing the opposite. That's called cross-cantering, and that's an out-of-balance position, and that skid causes the rail to come down.
And as a result, Joe Fargis must take his leave, and we will continue with the final jump-off.
Of our 87 AGA Tour, we're seeing 2 rounds of competition tonight. And these really become the 3rd and 4th rounds of our competition. 3 nights worth of work for the best show jumpers in America. And Joe Fargis is one of those. He's ranked 4th in the AGA Rider of the Year standings, performing tonight on Touch of Class. Joe Fargis, he's a veteran at age 39, won the American Gold Cup earlier this year, also won the Grand Prix of New Hampshire.
As you mentioned, Ken, he comes back after the first 2 nights of competition with a total of 11 faults so far. Joe Fargis and Touch of Class, again, you'd have to be thinking with the Olympic year 1988 right ahead of us. This pair perhaps maybe going to be a very important combination again as far as the success of our United States team is concerned in that competition. And I'm sure that's what Joe's thinking as he's clean through the first 3 jumps on course. The first line, light rub behind it, number 4, still clean as Touch of Class skids by the water. And this is a horse you would expect, along with many of the others tonight, not to be too disturbed by the water. Light rub in front and behind at number 6. Light rub behind at number 7, clean at number 8. And rubs at both ends of number 8. As this horse is clean so far, no jumping faults yet. Rubbing most of the jumps, this horse has a talent to, as the professionals say, rub very well. He can rub the jumps, he feels them. This horse feels comfortable, very comfortable feeling the rails, and does it very, very gently in such a way that normally they're not going to come down. Joe and Touch of Class to the triple combination now. And that's going to roll out just barely on fence number 12B for 4 faults. And that's as slow as you're going to see 4 faults occur. A very light rub, again, just gently rolled out of the cups. By the time he was at the back end of the triple combination, the rail hit the ground. So 4 faults, and that's going to be it for Joe Fargis and Touch of Class tonight, just those 4 faults.
Oh, very nice for this performer from Petersburg, Virginia. That gives Joe Fargis 15 faults total.
And we see Joe Fargis in the early stages of the competition tonight through the combination at 7AB and the ride forward to the jump number 8. That's been a long ride for many. Joe Fargis actually had to hold Touch of Class up to that, and very, very easily through that particular part.
This combination comes in with a total of 15 faults. Joe Fargis on a Touch of Class won 2 gold medals in '84 at the Los Angeles Olympics. One of the taller riders at 6'2", Joe Fargis.
One of the tallest, and certainly can lay claim to being one of the greatest, if not the greatest, this country has ever produced. He certainly has had the greatest success with his results in the Olympics in 1984. Double gold medal winner with the horse that he did it on, Touch of Class. Joe Fargis doing the 4 strides, and that's not something you're going to see most of the riders do. Joe added the stride, did that just as neatly as it can be done, making the turn back now to the Oxer at number 6. And a very easy ride to the combination at 7AB. This is just a textbook ride so far by one of the greats in the history of the sport, Joe Fargis and Touch of Class. A little rub at the Oxer at number 9. And a good ride across the Liverpool at number 10. Now, we'll watch the way Joe Fargis handles this combination. He's going to crank this horse up here. He's got a bad lead, and that gives him trouble. He presses to the beginning of it. I don't know if he's got enough gas to get across that, but he did. He was a little bit quieter than I know he wanted to be. He wanted to be a little faster. His horse got a wrong lead behind that made the pace a little bit difficult to create, but Joe got across that with no faults. And that's the way he's going to finish it tonight. That's a no-fault performance for Touch of Class and Joe Fargis.
And only 15 faults for Joe Fargis, who next April the 2nd, right here in Tampa, the day of the American Invitational, will celebrate his 40th birthday. This clean round doesn't quite bring a smile, but after 4 rounds on a touch of class, Joe Fargis inside has to